Yeah, well, that's always really not the first place you start when someone comes in is, because early on in the case, if they make some mistake, violate your constitutional rights, I mean, everything after that is over, So, yeah, usually when someone comes in, we're looking at, so search and seizure, search being like the search of your premises, your vehicle, something like that, and then seizure means stopping you, holding you. So, this is particularly true in drug cases, but also DUIs and things like that. Anything where there's like contraband found, like a possession crime, possession of stolen goods, possession of a firearm, possession of drugs, whatever it is. A vast majority of the time, it's the case begins with a traffic stop, and frankly, what happens is, whether it's subconscious or whatever, the officer sees someone and thinks they're suspicious, even if they can't articulate what it is, and then they'll look for a reason to make a stop. You kind of rolled through that stop sign a little bit, or you were going beyond the speed limit, or whatever. So that's usually the seizure part of that search and seizure is where we start. Okay, well, why did you pull the person over? Did you have a reason to do that? And if they can't provide a legally sufficient reason for seizing you, stopping your movement, then the case ends there. And anything they found in your car doesn't matter because they wouldn't have found it anyway. The search part, unfortunately, when it comes to your vehicle, that one's, unless the cop is being impatient in a hurry, unfortunately, our Supreme Court has given them some leeway, more so than at your house. At your home, I mean, unless there's exigent circumstances, meaning, someone's in danger, you're in the process of flushing stuff down the toilet, they've got to wait for a warrant. With your vehicle, they rely on probable cause on the theory that the vehicle's got wheels, and if they don't search it now, it can drive away. That's not really true, practically speaking, and I'm hoping our appellate division rectifies that at some point. But what we end up focusing on is probable cause. Okay, did you actually have probable cause to search the vehicle? One thing that undermines that out of the gate is when the person says, okay, yeah, you can search. Don't give permission. If you give permission, it doesn't matter if they didn't have probable cause. They don't need it. So yeah, that's step 2 is the search. Did they actually have a good reason to be rummaging through your car, searching your glove compartment and things like that. There's really 2 big ones. There's plain sight. They're like, okay, I saw something from outside the vehicle without searching it that gave me reason to believe that there would be contraband inside. They like to rely on things like scales. So, I saw a kitchen scale. I just had one actually where they saw a kitchen scale with what they saw was white powder on it. Of course, on cross-examination, the officer had to admit that, he couldn't tell what the white powder was. Being a kitchen scale, I think my question was something to the effect of, this being a kitchen scale, could you tell visually from the outside of the vehicle that was cocaine and not flour? That would totally make sense being on a kitchen scale, which he couldn't. And then actually, I don't think he. So the next question was, well, where do you get kitchen scales from? Because obviously, any Walmart or Publix you buy kitchen scales from the store. And obviously not everybody that's got a kitchen scale in their vehicle is a drug dealer. He didn't want to answer that. He's like, I don't know where you get drug scales from. And it's like, well, they don't actually manufacture drug scales. They manufacture kitchen scales. Which, that was one of those questions that was kind of helpful either way. Because it's like, well, either you admit that it's just a kitchen scale and anybody can have one, or you can be evasive and pretend like you don't know, which makes you look dishonest. So kitchen scales are one. If there's like baggies or something, or obviously contraband itself, if somebody's got like a joint sitting on the dashboard. The other thing though is, and this is the big one, or at least it used to be, although this whole issue is in flux now, which is the smell of marijuana. So the law on smell of marijuana as a basis for search has evolved in Georgia over a period of about 15 to 20 years. So, and it's almost unrecognizable from what it used to be. So originally, or not originally, but say 20 years ago, the landmark case on this, the Keystone case, involved some guys in a parking lot at a gas station with the windows down smoking marijuana. And the appellate court said, okay, well that's, the smell of marijuana is unique, particularly when you're smoking it. And they had the windows down and everybody around could smell the marijuana. And so based on that smell, law enforcement was able to search the vehicle and find contraband. Then over time, there was like this line of cases, and then it became not just like burning marijuana that someone is actively smoking. Now, if the officer smells marijuana, even green marijuana, or what he thinks is green marijuana, or something that's in his experience as a law enforcement officer, smells similar to marijuana, then he can search your vehicle. Now, the obvious issue with this is that you can't replicate that with body cam footage. You can't see a smell. And so basically it's the officer's word, and there's really no way to refute it. Like, how do you in a courtroom say, well, you didn't smell marijuana? And so that was basically the status quo for a number of years, and it was really the bane of defense attorneys' existence, because it was like, you had no basis. Because when you think about it, if all the officers got to do is say he smelled marijuana, there's no repercussions for there not being marijuana. Because oftentimes what they find is, well, there's a gun, or there was cocaine. And it's like, well, you didn't smell cocaine. You smelled marijuana, allegedly, that's not there. So what it did is it effectively threw out the probable cause element, because all the officer had to say is, well, I think I'm going to find something here. I smell marijuana. And so that was basically the status quo up until recently, and now the law's kind of in flux, in my opinion, because of the Hemp Farm Act. And the reason the Hemp Farm Act puts it in flux is that up until 2018, when the Hemp Farm Act was passed, any form of the cannabis sativa plant, the plant that is marijuana, any form of it, no matter the amount of THC, was illegal. So if you smelled that plant, and that's what that smell is that specific species of plant, then you were smelling something illegal. In 2023 and forward, or 2018 forward, you could smell that marijuana smell, but it could be legal hemp instead. Because legal hemp is just that same plant post 2018, and actually that's Georgia and a number of states actually did that to match changes to federal law, because the feds, I think in 2017, did the same thing. The Trump administration reclassified or passed their own hemp legalization act, and then Georgia and several other states did the same. And it basically said the cannabis sativa plant, any plant that's got 0.3% or less THC, to clarify, delta 9 THC, that's hemp. Anything that's got more than 0.3% delta 9 THC is illegal, is marijuana, which is illegal. There's other things. I mean, it's really been an interesting time because, you've got the hemp, and then what they do is they'll spray on different forms of THC, because only delta 9 THC is illegal. Delta 8, delta 10, delta 11 THC is now legal, and there's been some movement at the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court on that. I read a case recently where I think it was a county up in Metro Atlanta had to return money to a Delta 8 dispensary because they had came in, they had seized all of their stuff, and then I think it was maybe it was Gwinnett County, but the district attorney up there had to admit, no, this stuff is not illegal, and was ordered to return their money. It was something like $200,000, and then they had obviously seized what was there, and so they had to return all that stuff. But now you've got these forms of hemp that look, smell, and basically biologically and chemically are identical to marijuana. And so it's, as I say, it's still in flux. We don't have a case as of today that is on point. But I know myself and a lot of my colleagues were trying to attack that smell of marijuana as probable cause to search a vehicle, because frankly it's not anymore. You could be smelling something that's perfectly legal.